And there's Kelsey.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks for coming on tonight. I was
That's
just
okay.
telling people that I've been a life coach for over 8 years and in the school world for 20 years. And you were actually you did your first ever work experience with me when you were in grade 11, when I was teaching prep. And I think you got your love for teaching then. And it's really important for me that people who are teachers continue to love teaching, and we get that longevity in the profession. And I think your story is a great story of how coaching helped you be able to achieve that. So thank you for sharing tonight and coming on. So what I want to do tonight is I'm going to get you to do a bit of the talking. I'll ask some of the questions.
Sure.
But you and I, in the coaching world, when things were a bit tricky, a couple of years ago, you reached out to me one afternoon. It was tricky at work with a difficult class. Do you want to just do a quick introduction on what happened there, and then we'll go into when you actually started the coaching course?
Sure. Thanks, Kylie. I'm excited to be on tonight, so thank you for having me. So I reached out to you in a time, as you said, I was dealing with a really tricky class. In that moment, I felt like I had really lost sort of the power and the parts of teaching that I love. I felt like they weren't there because I was pushed to my limits, I thought, trying to manage these challenging students. And I reached out to Kylie to more or less just ask for some advice on, what should I do? How do I see past this? I've always wanted to be a teacher, and I really don't want to let this one class that I'm really struggling with to, change my trajectory, I suppose. And the other part of me who absolutely loved that class and can look back now and see all of the wonderful learnings that I had from that, I wanted to be better for them. So I didn't just want to improve for me and for my well-being and mental health, I suppose, but I wanted to be better for them because I knew I wasn't probably performing at my best at that time. So when I reached out to Kylie, you had some great advice for me, Kylie. It was about, okay, I can hear that, these are the things that you're struggling with. And the most powerful thing you said was, so what are we going to do about it? We needed some actions here. To which then I worked with you. I wrote down quite a few things that, I knew that I wanted to see change. And then you helped me brainstorm some ways to start taking action straight away, which then filtered into continual discussions, which then led to the perfect timing of you offering coaching. And I said, yes, please.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I remember, Kel, I said to you, all the power is in the now. And so it was in that particular moment we brainstormed up, well, what are we going to do? So that was the actions. And this was a drive home that we had this conversation. And I think by the time you had got home and within an hour or two, you had put a multitude of actions in place to be able to improve your experience with that class and the class's experience as well. So I clap to you because that was pretty amazing.
Thank you. No, and you know what, even if when I got home and I had that action plan in my mind, it already had started to change my mindset. I started to go, okay, I can do this. It started to give me back that positivity and that bubble for teaching that I thought I had lost, but it wasn't. It was just simmering underneath, and I just needed some support to sort of unlock that and see what was waiting ahead of me and what I could, bring to a challenging situation.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the benefits of coaching is the support that you can get along the way. And if one phone call can give you that support and inspire you to be able to continue along the path you want, because that's one thing I got from you that night is that you love teaching.
Yeah.
And I think one of the questions I asked is this something you want to do for a long time? And you said, this was my dream. I've always wanted to do this. So you didn't want to give up on it. So you wanted to make sure that you could continue. So that's perfect. So from there, you went put a few things in place and you got some changes and so forth. And then I was offering some group coaching and you became part of that group. Do you want to tell us a little bit about why you wanted to be part of that?
Absolutely. So it was funny because prior to coaching, I was a little bit like, oh, universe, yeah, and then when this all happened and then the opportunity for group coaching was presented, I was like, oh my goodness, this is like perfect timing. I'm needing this right now. This is the universe telling me you need to do this. I was most excited by the fact that I knew I would be with like-minded people, other people that were in the profession, that understood, and you with your understanding, Kylie, being in schools as well, the understanding that I can go in here and be real about, challenges, yes, in relation to school life, and it would be validated and heard and, understood. But then also it led into such personal growth. And it was just amazing. Like by the end of the 8 weeks that we did together, it was emotional. We were all like withdrawing from the fact that coaching was going to end. So it was a beautiful opportunity to inspire myself, but also inspire others just by sharing and caring. I suppose just, that like-mindedness.
Yeah, perfect. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Most people come to coaching for a particular reason, and excuse me, some people are coming along for a professional reason. But when we start, it is personal, isn't it? The change happens on a personal level, which then affects the professional world, and
Absolutely.
that's what I love about coaching as
Yeah.
well.
And I think that, a lot of the things that you'll be like, oh, it's because of the work, But the one thing that I always use now, Kylie, since our sessions is, what's the why that makes you cry? And there is so much purpose and drive behind why I do what I do. And I suppose that if it's the why that makes you cry, it's not just professional, it is personal, because it's what lies within your heart that you want to, see to come through, to the kids, to the way that you work with staff. So overall, it's a whole transformative motion that we went through, and it was, just beautiful to be a part of it.
I know that why that makes you cry. I regularly cry because of my why. So when things get tricky for me and I remember my whys, it really is heartfelt. And when you know why you're going to school, or why you want your well-being to be in a good place because of your family or for you or whatever reasons it is, it pushes you forward. Because when we want change, there is a bit of energy that needs to go into it. But if you have that why and you're very clear on it, then anything is possible. So when we embarked on the coaching, it's normally a 10-week course, and we did it in 8 weeks because we put a couple of sessions together and so forth. Tell me, we started with finding out where we are, so got some really clarity around that. Was there anything in that first session that you weren't unsure on, or was it, yep, this is very clear, I now know what I want?
It's funny that you say that, Carly. I've actually got my coaching book here that I used the whole way through. So it was funny. I went back and went, oh, it's actually really lovely to go back. But I've got looking at session 1 here. When we first started working together, it was really about that holistic approach. So looking at, the relationships, the spiritual growth, the career, the health, the emotional, the financial. So it was that holistic understanding of, where am I at right now? What are my areas that I'm feeling a little bit low in? Why are they low? What can I do? But that was all to come. But at that moment, it was just that check-in. And I think that sometimes in the busyness, you don't really get a moment to sit and check in and have a bit of that reflection. And so it was just a really good time to go, I can see some areas here that I might need to work on. I'm glad I'm doing what I'm doing. So that was that session 1 for me. Was amazing, to meet the other ladies that I was doing the session with, and to be able to, straight away, I felt like we just built this community of people that were wanting to share and happy to share. And I'm a very open book. I'll be the first to put my hand up and tell you my life story. But it was just a time to reflect and check in and start to build some of those connections that then absolutely blew out of proportion from where I ever thought they would have been. But session 1 was all about that check-in and building that connection with the other ladies.
And whoever you start your coaching course with, the people that are there are the ones who are meant to be there. It's quite interesting. The people that were in your course were all women of mostly your age who were aspiring leaders or in leadership, and or some of them with young families like you have. And it was very appropriate that they were the people in your group. So whoever happens to be in your group is actually who's meant to be there. So that's a really important one to remember too, because we've all got something to learn from each other.
Yeah.
Kel, after that we looked at our purpose. Do you remember what your purpose words were?
I do. I've got it here. So my purpose statement, my purpose words are in there, but my statement was that my purpose in life is to experience love and completeness. And so I had a bit of a mission. We spoke about a mission to get there. And it was around really treasuring that time with your family and your friends, embracing opportunities to grow within myself, but also then inspiring others to grow. And when we were talking about doing this live tonight, Kylie, I went through and I highlighted all the things that I feel like I'm doing that. And those were 3 things that I feel like I actually have really put some significant time and effort into, and am excited to see that am where I am because of you know, putting that down on paper.
Just when you mentioned inspiring and family and self and whatever, you live by that.
Yeah,
you really do live by your mission. So that's wonderful. And just before we finish tonight, we'll actually talk about where you are now. But
cool.
In the coaching course over the next few weeks from here up from there, so you had your where we started, we had your purpose, and we looked at the 5 steps to getting anything you want. We looked at your environment, we looked at language, we looked at state, we looked at relationships, beliefs. Is there anything in there that really stood out to you the most? A session, like, I love all the sessions, so I don't know how you possibly choose, but is there something particularly that has been very helpful?
It's funny, I was looking at the top of each page, at the end of what we were doing in our sessions, Kylie, you'd always put up something and say, what lands for you? You know, what are you connecting with in this piece of, you know, writing or poem or whatever it might be? And I wrote what they were in a little bubble at the top of each of my page. You can see my little bubbles at the top of each page. And going back to those as a bit of I was trying to identify, is it one particular session or is it the things that I pulled together from each session? And I think it's just those little one-liners that I wrote down that was really solidified the whole session into 1 or 2 words or 1 or 2 lines that really resonated for me. I suppose in terms of which session did I really enjoy, it's hard to say, they're all. But it's some of the things I've gone, actually, I hadn't even thought I was consciously putting effort into that or, you know, guiding my thoughts and thinking around that, but that's come too. So I don't know, it's really hard to pick one, but I do think that those little bubbles that I'd written at the top of each page after each session were linked to, you know, the benefits that I had reaped from that session, I guess.
Has there been anything difficult or challenging arise in your work at the moment where you think that you may have called on something? So I'll give you an example. For me, when things get challenging, I look at the language that I'm using. And so I often will say to myself, how can I? So how can I make this happen? Or I had a difficult conversation a few weeks ago, and I've got a few people around me who have done coaching. So I'm lucky to have my environment full of people who have coached as well. So they've got the skills and strategies. And I know I was talking to the people around me and they're going, okay, Kylie, we need to get your state. So, and I had talked about how I click my fingers to get into a prime state. And they're there with me, clicking your fingers, and they're pumping me up, ready to get back in there to go into the difficult conversations that I was having. Is there anything so I've said environment, or the environment that you have realized, okay, if I want to learn that skill, I need to add to my environment? Is there anything you can think of that's been challenging that you have used something for or remembered from coaching?
One I go back to, and you said language, is the language session that we did in session 5. That our thoughts are internal and external. So what you think and feel is what you become. Yeah. So I think that the language, not only the language I'm presenting to others, but the language I'm using for myself, yes. I think I've not automatically, but I've made an effort to change the way that I may speak to myself, which then changes the way I present to others. I suppose in those challenging conversations or in those times where I really need to listen and be present and then understand, okay, how can I help here? What kind of language would be useful in this time? So I think that's probably one I use every day, whether it be for myself or in my job as a leader.
Perfect. So Kelsey, from here, tell us, we had that phone call with a tricky class. You've done some coaching since. Some things have changed for you in your career. Can you tell us what's happened?
Sure. So it's very exciting. It feels like a whirlwind, Kylie, but all very much exciting. So after we had that chat in the car and I was sort of struggling with the class I was in, mind you, I was also coming back from having a baby. I was, you know, on teaching 3 days a week, also supporting on my other days off with some leadership responsibilities, I suppose. And it was you, Kylie, that planted that seed and said, you know, have you ever thought that you should probably give that a crack? And I'm like, no, 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 no. And then I started thinking and thinking. And as I was getting these challenges thrown at me and then actually finding ways to sort of overcome them and, to, as I said before, turn it into a really positive situation and grow from it, I probably opened myself up more to the idea of leadership. So I kept putting my hands up for everything. And then it got to a point where I went, I am going to give this a crack. And I applied for some acting roles in a variety of schools. And I ended up at a school that I'm absolutely in love with. And I did a term of primary learning leader at this particular school. They wanted me to continue on, but it didn't work out that way, which I was very flattered. But to which then I'd had the hunger for it. I just wanted to keep going. The love had been rekindled for me in a different way. So I then looked to see what other, opportunities were out there. And again, everything aligned. Thank you, universe. Ended up applying for another primary learning leader role at a different school, which I also loved so much in turn. I was so lucky last year, very blessed to have 3 amazing schools that I worked at, into which I had a semester in a primary learning leader role. Loved this role, loved the schools that I was doing it in. Just thought it's just a trial for a year, getting a bit of a feel for, if this is for me, if it is meant to be for me, trust, surrender, allow. I thought I'm just going to put it out there. Yes. I put it out there and see what happens. To which the school that I originally did the learning leader role at contacted me and said, there's a spot coming up as a middle leader. Would you take it? And I was like, hold on, what is it for? And I've been working in it since the beginning of this year as a learning partnerships leader. So in charge of all of our students across a prep to 12 college. So a massive role, and it's full time, and I get to see a variety of different kids with a variety of different needs. And in all honesty, could not do the job that I'm currently doing without those challenges that I had when I was on the phone to you going, what do I do? So everything is just happens for a reason. I've always said that, but it's just become more and more apparent, I suppose, in this last, year and a half. So yes, now I'm in a leadership role that I love and adore. I get to work with the kids. I get to work with the teachers. I've got a little bit of that planning in there as we're planning for students with adjustments. So overall, couldn't be happier. Very, very, very happy in and lots of areas of life, but in terms of my position in school, when I wrote down my goals I wrote, it is now August 2024 and I have an action plan to further my career. I'm excited to see what outcomes come with this plan. Well, it's September 2024 and I've been in this leadership role all year and I'm loving it. So at that point, in my head, I was back in the classroom looking at what would be happening for me in terms of if there's any leadership things that may arise for me. And, I can say that I've well and truly kicked that goal, which is really exciting. So.
And I think that's what we find in coaching, isn't it? We set these goals and we think that they're huge and they're not really.
Yeah.
And we get them quickly.
Yeah.
Because we have been intentional by setting them. And there's no way that you probably would have thought that you would be where you are now, considering from where you were. So you put the energy and you put the time and you committed to yourself. So Kelsey, you have a 2.5-year-old, you work full time, you're married, you have a social life.
Yes.
How
Guilty.
do you ensure your well-being?
Yeah, absolutely. When we looked at the first session, Kylie, and we looked at sort of those different areas holistically as a person and the areas I was feeling flat in. And then when we did it again in session 8, I know it's usually 10, we squished it to 8. I had a much more healthy looking wheel. So I'll quickly show. That was my wheel to begin with. This was my wheel later.
Wow.
So my wheel was definitely not having the do-do. It was definitely flowing more so. And I think that came down to, and I wrote it down, think big and your deeds will grow. Think that you can and you will. And then you've got to be sure of yourself. There were 3 things I wrote down after that last session. And I think that across the board, I honestly feel like I've maintained that wheel. And even though, financial, I've put it as a 7, like I'm not a millionaire. I'm not absolutely loaded full of money. But for me, I'm really happy as to where we are financially. You know, in terms of spiritual, I've put it as a 9 at the end of the session. I would say the same as now. Again, it's not like I'm spiritually connected to another being or a belief, but within myself, I feel like I'm at a 9. I feel like I do my daily meditations, I do my self-talk. I know I wrote down on one of my end of the session notes, download the I Am app and it just will give you some affirmations every day. That still comes through every day. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's all these little things that we did put in place. And I feel like that has maintained me to be in that positive state
Yeah.
from then
So
till
I
now.
think you can have a busy job, but if
Mm,
you love it and you feel like your soul's being fed while you're doing it,
yes.
then you love what you're doing and your well-being is good. Because
Yep.
sometimes we do have to stay a little bit later or do a little bit of work on the weekend or
Hmm.
whatever. But if in all areas of our life we're nourishing ourselves,
Hmm.
then that feels like it's doing well. So
Yeah.
that's fantastic. So
And Kylie, it was a funny full circle moment just recently, just to let everyone know. Kylie and I actually sat together at a leadership conference
yeah.
where it was inspiring leaders. And I just was mind blown at the fact that here I was, year 11, Kelsey, doing reading in Kylie's classroom with the preps, you know, as a bit of work experience, to now sitting beside who I've idolized Kylie in leadership forever, to be able to sit beside her and go, you helped me get here. And it's the
I
same.
felt
The passion and the love that you show for the things that you do, it's vibrational, and I think that you've inspired me to then feel that way. And you know, the happiness that I feel and the growth that I've experienced is part of being modeled that from you, but also that love for learning's always been my thing, but I've really do love what I do, and I wouldn't have been able to get there. So thank you for everything from day dot to now.
and you could have been someone who walked away from the profession to
Yeah.
someone who is
Yeah.
thriving in the profession.
Yeah.
And I think now you have a lot of tools in your
Hmm.
toolkit that when challenges come your way, because things do, there's
Yeah.
no way that you can be 28 years old and not have challenges still come the rest of your life, but you have a lot of tools.
Absolutely.
So, what would you say to anybody who was considering coaching?
So I've spoken probably a lot about my experience and my school background and, you know, like-minded people. I think that people also need to be open-minded, that this is not just for people in the school education profession. Within our group, we had other women who were not at all in that space.
That's right.
And I think that if you're considering it and you're feeling like life is presenting you with challenges, I don't really know what my next step is. I just need something, and you know, a group of people, something. I just need some sort of positive influence on where I am and what I want to see moving forward. You just do it. We were at the end of session 8, as I said, it was very emotional. We were all crying, being like, it's not finished, when's the next one? And it was, yeah, it just totally transpired what then was to come and where I am now. Um, I think that the things that you do throughout the sessions, even though you're putting the energy and the mind into it in the session, and you think, oh, well, I have time to think about this outside of the session, you subconsciously have got it going. And even as you said, when you go back and you look through it again, you go, oh yeah, I am still doing that. Oh yeah, I am still doing that. Oh, that would make sense. That's why I'm feeling good in that space. So the skills that you learn, and for me, my biggest thing, and I'm not afraid of a challenge now. I was afraid when I had that challenging class. I didn't know what to do. I was going, this is everything I ever wanted. Why does it feel like I'm just getting up against a brick wall over and over again? I see a challenge now with a totally different lens. I'm really excited by the learning that comes from it. And we all have tough days, don't get me wrong. And I'm no, you know, I will never aim or say that I'm an expert in anything, because I will always want to learn from things. But being able to know that a challenge isn't something to be afraid of is something that I've learned through coaching, and just something I'll take into everyday life, whether it be professionally, personally, etc.
You've been very inspiring, Kelsey. It makes me want to do coaching with me. That was
No,
wonderful.
do you know what? It's so funny, Kylie, because I was thinking, oh, here we go. I'm going to be on live. I'm a bit nervous. Like, should I look at what? But just being able to speak to what I have achieved working with you, but what I have experienced, and I'm excited like what's to come, because the last 18 months has not looked like anything like I would have thought it would look like. But then after the coaching, my whole view changed, and now it's like, oh, what opportunities are coming? So that's exciting.
And Kelsey, everybody who did that course achieved amazing things. By the time we had finished, if not by the time we'd finished, within 2 or 3 weeks, everybody was sharing, I got the promotion I wanted, or I got the pay rise, or I got the new house, or all those things that happened for everybody was just so wonderful to watch. And I truly do want people to be happy. I say to people all the time, I just want you to love what you do. And if I can help you find that love again, that's what I want. Kelsey,
well, you did that for me, so thank you.
You're welcome. And I was really proud of you at that Inspiring Leaders course the other day. It was so lovely sitting next to you. Very